Hi, welcome to another episode of the Out of Office Club. I am very happy that you're back, that you're listening again. I know I took a little break last week, which I felt quite guilty about because I've been very consistent for a couple months now, which I was very proud of. But last week, I don't know, I needed a short break. I didn't really know what to talk about. Even though I did have some ideas before, I just felt, I don't know, a bit empty maybe. And I also generally just didn't have the time. I didn't make the time. So I decided, you know what, 1 week off is okay. So thanks for coming back and listening to the next episode. I think for me, it was actually also quite nice. I used to be more of like the black and white thinking, especially in business. So if I couldn't do it 100%, I would just not do it. And I would only launch something if it was absolutely perfect. And I actually realized how much that holds me back. You know, when you're younger and you have those stickers that you then don't want to use because then they're wasted and you can't use them again. Or you've got a notebook or a sketchbook and you feel like every page has to be perfect. Otherwise, it's not good. I've always had that mindset. And that's what I mean, like it really holds you back. I think at some point my dad gave me Polaroid camera and the photos for the Polaroid, and I never wanted to use them because I felt like, oh, but that's such a waste, because then, you know, I can only use them once and I have to do it at the right time and it has to be perfect. And then at the end, at some point, my dad got them for me after years and we took photos finally. And by then they'd already kind of expired, so they didn't even work properly anymore. And it's not worth it. So I think I'm learning more and more to just do my best, even if it's not perfect, to launch things before I think they're perfect. I think that gets you a lot further than not doing it at all because it might go wrong or because it might not be perfect. So yeah, I would just realized, 1 week off is okay. And then I'm going to try my best and just do it every week again, just like before. But I did a good, how much was it? 17 episodes. So 17 weeks, which I still think is pretty good. But I'm back, and today I do want to talk about a very important topic, but it's also a topic that has been really kind of thrown in my face, I would say, nicely in the past 1 to 2 weeks. I don't know why, but I had a couple of videos on social media that did quite well. And the amount of comments I got from that kind of shocked me. Well, not shocked me, but surprised me. And that's also why I think this is a good topic to talk about now. So there was one video that I posted where I went out for dinner with strangers. You might have seen it. It's with an app where you can just book yourself onto a table and then go out for dinner with strangers, which I personally, especially as a full-time traveler, think is a great idea because it's a really nice way to meet new people without having to organize something yourself. It's a bit more safe. You don't actually know who you're meeting until you're there. You're with other people. In my head, that is a safe way for me to go and meet other people. While I then got a lot of comments from people saying that I was begging to be kidnapped, robbed, all of those things, and that it was so unsafe and that I should never do that. And that really got me thinking, okay, what do people think is then safe when you travel on your own, and then especially as a woman? So that's what I want to talk about, I guess, on this episode, more about safety and what that means to me. That is different to everyone, and give you my tips on how I handle solo traveling as a woman, or just in general solo traveling, and how I've navigated it, to maybe also, I hope always, to make you see that it doesn't have to be dangerous, that traveling doesn't have to be scary, because I think a lot of people find it really scary and they let that fear stop them. But I've been traveling for over 10 years and I've been fine. Of course, I know that shit can happen, but I feel like that can happen anywhere. It can also happen in the Netherlands, where I'm from. And just because I'm traveling, of course, there's more risk. But I don't think in itself that traveling is or has to be dangerous. So I want to talk a bit about kind of things that I've experienced, how I handled them, my mindset towards safety, and what I do to actually also actively keep myself safe. Because yeah, a lot of people gave me a lot of shit for going for a dinner, which I didn't think was fair. Because again, I'm traveling on my own. I want to meet people. How else am I going to meet people? I'm always going to have to go to an event by myself and actively put myself out there to meet people. Is that technically risky? I guess. But what else are you going to do? So I also don't feel like there's an alternative. And I know that that app also offers women-only dinners, which I think is a great idea, which I'm also going to try. But in general, you're going to have to put yourself out there to meet people. And that comes with a certain level of risk. But I personally, when I travel, I try and be very aware of my surroundings. Of course, I'm not always great at this. You miss things, but I do try and be aware of my surroundings so that if I'm, especially if I'm by myself, someone walks past, generally, yes, I am a lot more aware of men. So if it's a man, I try and make sure that they keep walking, that I'm not followed. There have been instances where I felt someone watching me, and that's when I'm, of course, hyper aware of everything that happens. But I think that's just really, really important to be aware of your surroundings and to not rely then too much on other people, to not drink too much. Again, I've made mistakes in all of these aspects because just before I say anything else, the whole thing about being safe and safety, part of it is luck. You can do every single thing right and still get attacked, get robbed. Not everything is in your control. And of course, that is partially the risk of not just traveling, but being outside, doing things, exploring, living life. That is the risk. Things happen. So with everything I say, always keep in mind that a lot of it also isn't up to you and isn't in your control. And it's also part luck, but there's a lot you can do to feel safe and be safer. But yeah, I'm very aware in public about what's happening around me. There's been multiple times where I would get out of trains and wait to make sure that the person who I felt was watching me would walk in front of me, not behind me, so that he couldn't follow me. I've done that multiple times where I would just stop on the side of the road to make sure that they would walk first and I didn't feel like they were following me. Things like that. I do quite often whenever I feel like it's something's off. Because that is something else you really have to, or really learn how to trust your gut. If something feels off, don't do it. It doesn't matter why. It doesn't matter if you're rude. It doesn't matter what the other people are going to think. What matters is that you're comfortable. And if that means having to say no, saying something rude, or, choosing for yourself, if it feels off, don't do it. I've also done risky things, especially if you listen to my last podcast episode. I've not always done the smart thing, but I've only done them when they felt right. If I felt like, okay, but this feels good, or it feels like I can trust the situation or this person, then I've done it. Otherwise, no. And I've said no a lot of times. But yeah, definitely be aware of your surroundings. Be rude if you have to. Lie if you have to. I have lied a lot, especially now that I travel slower. That's actually increased because before I moved around so fast, it didn't really matter so much if someone knew where I was going or where I was at, because the next day I was already leaving. So it was a bit more rushed. But now that I travel very slowly, whenever someone I don't know asks where I live, I'm very vague. I just tell them I live roughly in that area, or I live close to the city center, or I live outside of this, And if they ask for an address, or they walk with me, or they ask how long I'm staying, I generally lie. Just the other day, I was in a taxi and the driver asked me where I was going. And I don't want to say that I'm going to my apartment. So I always, because then they know that that's where I'm sleeping. So generally, I will say I'm on my way to a friend. We're having, you know, we're having drinks there. It doesn't matter. I just say I'm on my way to a friend or family. And then I do like to drop that that friend is a male. I say he's waiting for me there. Whenever they ask if I have a partner or if I'm married, I always say yes. And I mean strangers, right? If, of course, I meet someone at a co-living or at an event, I'm not lying about these things, apart from my address, that is private. But then, of course, I'll say that I'm single. But if it's strangers, I lie about these things often. So generally, I have a boyfriend. If they ask if I'm married, I say yes. If they ask me where he is, I generally say that he's walking. Or that he is getting groceries, or that he'll be right back. I did this a lot also when I was in my van, when I was driving around. I didn't want anyone to know that I was sleeping there by myself at night. And I still don't, even if I'm in an apartment with like proper locks. And I just don't like that idea. And I think as a woman, that is a smart thing to do. I've talked to a lot of male travelers who don't lie about these things because they don't feel like they have to. And to them, they've told their taxi drivers everything, like, oh yeah, I'm staying here by myself, here for the month. It's so great. This is what I do for work. And they just tell them their whole life story. And I just generally don't do that. I'm very vague. I'm always with other people. I'm always going to a friend. He is always there. My boyfriend is always, lie. That is my main thing. Don't put yourself in a tricky situation because you're trying to be polite. You don't owe anyone the truth. Even if you do go to an event to make friends and you feel like something is off, you lie. I think that's just the best way to do it. I, at some point, got stopped on the street by a man who said he just wanted a nice conversation. I was 18 at the time and quite shy. Right now, I probably would have told him to get out. But at that point, I didn't really know what to do. It was I think it was my second month of traveling alone. So we just had a talk and he kept walking with me and he said, where are you going? I was like, well, I'm going back to my hostel. And he wouldn't leave me alone. He kept walking with me. And every time I would say, oh, but I have to go back to my hostel. And he's like, oh, I'll walk with you. And I was like, okay. Until, of course, at that moment, I realized I cannot go back to my hostel right now because I don't want this man to know where I'm sleeping tonight. He gave me such bad vibes that I didn't want him to know where I was at for the next week. So I just kept walking. I didn't even walk towards the direction of my hostel. I just kept walking until at some point I think he got so tired and he was like, oh, where are you going now? I was like, I have to go that way. And that's when he said, oh, I have to go that way. I was like, perfect. See you never. Bye. And then we walked opposite ways and I made sure that he wasn't following me. And then I walked back to where my hostel actually was. Was that necessary? Who knows? Was that maybe a bit excessive? Probably. You just don't know. That's the issue. And I think a lot of men don't see that. And they say, oh, but they mean well. And I didn't, I was being friendly. And I was like, that's great. That's lovely. But I don't know who is friendly and who is not. And I care more about my safety and my peace of mind than your ego and your need to be liked. In the end, I don't need you to like me. I just need to be safe. And I'm going to do what I need to do to make that happen. So yeah, lie, be rude, especially as a woman. Sometimes you have to. I've yelled at men to leave me alone because that is the only thing I could do at some point to get them to understand that they should not approach me or they should stay away. Something small that's happened multiple times, which I think you need to be aware of. I've been in buses, trains, where most of the seats would be empty. And generally, when it is, I will put my bag on the seat next to me. If I'm at the window, seat would be in this. My bag would be on the seat next to me. Of course, if it's full, I don't do that and I keep my bag on my lap. But otherwise, I'll put it next to me. And I've had it happen multiple times where a man would come up to me and ask me to remove my bag. You know, asking, "Oh, can I sit there?" And almost instinctively, you want to grab your bag and say, "Of course," and make some space. But that's when you realize the space is empty. You could sit literally anywhere. And then I just look at them and I go, "No." And then I point to everywhere around me and tell them to go and sit somewhere else. That's happened quite a few times, I have to say. So keep that in mind next time you take public transportation. You don't owe anyone the seat next to you when the bus is empty or the train. But yeah, that's a tricky one. In general, I also do share my location with people I trust. Is there much that they can do when something happens? No, but just the idea that at least they have my last known location to me is important. Because then at least they roughly know where to search, where to start searching in case anything happens to me or anything's wrong. They'll know where I was. Also because sometimes I do move around quickly. I travel slow, but of course in a day I could take a day trip or I could go away for the weekend and then I travel around often, and then it's very hard to keep everyone updated all the time about where you're going, what you're doing. I mean, just last week we had a car and we were driving around the south of where I'm now, in the south of Greece, which is great, but I didn't tell anyone that. So then at least they have my last known location, which makes me feel safer. Again, I don't post on social media real time. So everything, or most of, like 90% of what you see on social media on my account is a day or 2 or 3 days in the past. And I know that might sound really mean, but I just don't like the idea that people know exactly where I am when I post. So I always wait a day or a couple days, and then I'll post about places where I won't go back. And that's how at least I keep safe online as well. Because the amount of DMs I get on social media is getting a bit out of hand. I've already limited who can message me, which has helped, but it's still a lot. And I know that 99% means well, but it doesn't make me feel safe. I feel more watched, and that makes me more cautious about what I do and don't do. Still not perfect, of course, with what I share on social media, and there's mistakes that I make sometimes, but getting better. Then I think digitally I also use VPNs, things like that, just small things that keep me safe. Locks on everything, passcodes on everything. When I stayed in hostels, I always used the locks that they gave me to put at least my most important items, like any electronics that I had, passport, things like that, just to keep my belongings safe. And because I remember walking into hostels and I would just see people's laptop, headphones, passport, sometimes even money, just right there on their bed while they were taking a shower, which always blew my mind. Like, of course, most people, again, are completely fine, but you only need one idiot to mess up your trip. And that to me is just not worth it. So I was always very careful with my belongings, making sure to put them in a locker, which I still highly recommend you do. Yeah, that's, I think, what I did in hostels. Very straightforward. And then, of course, when you travel, especially because, again, because I'm a woman, but also because I'm white, in the many, many countries where you go to as a white person or a white female, they assume that you have more money. And the last thing you want to do is prove them right or to show that you have money. I think that goes regardless of kind of where you go. If you're by yourself, you don't want to become a target. And you become a target by showing that you have money. And of course, because of how I look and because of certain countries that I travel to, I need to be even more aware of that. There have been countries where I've been warned about this actively multiple times by many people. Make sure you don't wear any jewelry. Just don't wear it. They will steal it, they'll mug you, they'll, think or assume that you have money. There's also been many countries where it's better not to take out your phone. So if you then really have to check, try and kind of shield your phone, hide, stand behind someone else. Don't wear, again, the jewelry, watches, your phone, money. Don't wave around your money, especially if you go to an ATM. Try never to go in the evenings. Try and go preferably with someone else so they can stand outside. When you get your money, immediately put it away. Never take out your money and turn around, because then you show everyone how much money you just got out. You take your money, you put it away, and that's it. Those are just ways to keep not just your stuff safe, but you as well, just as a person. Just don't show that you have anything that's worth stealing. Of course, in some countries, again, you need to be more aware of this than in others. But generally, that's what I do almost everywhere. The jewelry I have is it's not worth anything anyway, but it also doesn't look like it could be. The only thing I have, of course, is my Apple Watch, which I think most people know isn't that interesting. And even that I'll take off occasionally. I am sometimes very careful with when I take out my phone. But yeah, those are things that help a lot. In my first trips when I went backpacking, there have been many countries where I would not go out at night by myself, also because I was a bit more hesitant. But as a woman, sometimes it's just better not to go out at night. And unfortunately, that I think counts for many countries around the world at the moment. But yeah, in some places I felt safer to do that than in others. And I definitely made sure to then take the safest route to or from wherever I was going. So I would take maybe public transport to get there because it was still light, but then take a private taxi on the way back to be safer and not have to go and walk anywhere. Again, depended a bit on the country. But that's how I would personally stay safe and feel safer. There have been places where I would go to people in my hostel or in the friend group that I built and ask them to go with me. And that is something else I would recommend. It is better to go to someone to ask for help than to wait for someone to come to offer help. Because sometimes it's the people that have bad intentions that will come to you to offer help when they actually don't really want to help. While if you go to someone, especially strangers, you're less likely to pick someone with bad intentions. So it's better to go and ask for help than to wait for someone to help you. But whenever I stayed in hostels or in even just co-livings or to events, I would sometimes ask people to help. For example, to walk with me to the supermarket because it was dark and I really had to get something. I just a couple weeks ago was walking back with another girl and a guy, and we were walking home, and then he said, "Oh, I need to go to the left. My hotel's there." And I looked at him and I said, "I'm sorry, but you're gonna have to walk both of us home. It's not that far, but we are safer with you here just because you are a man." And that is the unfortunate reality. But I'm more and more vocal about this too, because why would I now have to feel uncomfortable and unsafe when I have someone that could take that away? And, together we are safer. So he was like a bit reluctant, but he was like, okay, I guess you're right. So he walked with us. We brought the first girl home. And then from there, I took a taxi home and he walked back, or I think he also took a taxi. But yeah, those are ways to keep safer. So again, for any man that's listening, if you can, try and help women feel safer. I know it is shit that it's necessary, but the times where I've gone out by myself, the catcalling, the whistling, the hyper awareness, all of that is times 10. While if there's a man there, other men ignore me. They don't look at me. They don't yell at me. They don't catcall me. They don't bother me. And it is, again, sad that that's necessary, but it makes a really, really big difference in how safe a woman feels. So for any of my male travelers, please just take care of female travelers that you see. Don't assume that they're going to be fine because it's only a 5-minute walk. Make sure that they're fine. Walk with them, help them, especially if you've gone out drinking and there's alcohol involved. It is not a big effort generally, but it really, really makes an impact, and it can really make a difference. So please just try and do that when you can. And for the women, just, try and go with your gut. Try and be safe that way. Again, I just don't feel like traveling in itself has to be dangerous or scary. You just have to be smart about it. But I think that goes wherever you live. I've had to adopt all of these same rules when I lived in the Netherlands, when I was in Finland, when I lived in Spain. Like, it didn't really matter where I lived. You still are aware. You have to be aware of your surroundings. We try and be safe online. There's no different. And that's why I just don't agree with the whole idea that travel has to be or is dangerous. It is not. I've traveled for 10 years. I've not been in any various dangerous situations. Part luck, part being aware, making smart choices when I could. And then I think you'll be okay. I think it's a waste to let fear win in that way, because then you'll never see anything, and you think that staying in one place is safer, while I can almost guarantee you that the place where you're living might even have higher crime rates than than places where you're traveling to. So does it really say that much, So yeah, just again, be safe, be smart about it. Something I was saying not so long ago, I forgot. We travel solo, not stupid. I think that's the one. Just be smart about what you do. Make sure that you follow your gut, and then honestly, you will be fine. Ask for help when you need. But yeah, that's something I really wanted to talk about for this week, because I think it's important. And again, I got so many comments about it that I just thought, I want to talk about this, because it feels like at the moment, as a woman, you're not allowed to do anything because everything is dangerous, and that is not fair. Am I maybe taking a risk on this and traveling and putting myself out there? Sure. But what is the alternative? Not doing anything because of fear, and then just staying home, not leaving my house, never going out for dinners, not meeting new people. I just don't think that is an alternative, basically. That's just, locking people up somewhere under the guise of safety. So yeah, that was almost like my rant for this week. I do hope that it gave you, I don't know, maybe some confidence in some ways. If you have any other questions about safety, about how I handle it, about anything else, just comment wherever it is that you're watching or listening this. You can also DM me on Instagram. That's where I'm most active. And then thank you again so much for listening. I hope to see you again next week. Bye bye.